What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you the battle for Week 4 of Season 7 of the CPC, and this week we are up against Burigo and Milantic. It says PC, I'm thinking maybe it's FC, but I mean, I could be wrong. I'm very unfamiliar with European football teams. But anyway, before I get into the team, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button, helps us out a ton, and let's just do more cool stuff for you guys. But anyway, on to the team. Like I said, we are up against Burigo, and he has a team of Jirachi, Manaphy, Zygarde 50, Mega Alakazam, Rotom Heat, Alolan Ninetales, Chestnut, Slurpuff, Aerodactyl, and Quagsire. And I do want to apologize if I'm having to be a little bit quieter than normal. That is because people are back for the holidays. I'm recording this at home, trying to balance getting everything ready and set up for Christmas while also getting this video recorded. So I do apologize if it's a little bit quicker than I normally go and a little bit quieter. But yeah, his team is basically just very, very threatening. I mean, you have some gigantic threats in Manaphy, Zygarde, Mega Alakazam. You have very solid support in Alolan Ninetales and Jirachi, and even some of his low-tier threats like Slurpuff and Aerodactyl are very annoying to have to try to deal with as well. So all in all, a very scary team. But that being said, I am noticing that there are some things that I can definitely exploit on his end. First of all, he does not have a single ghost. It doesn't even have a ghost resist at all. I mean, he does have Chestnut, which is immune to Shadow Ball, but Chestnut is absolutely exploited by my team very, very heavily. So I'm not thinking Chestnut's going to be brought. So yeah, his lack of Ghost Resist is going to be something that I kind of key in on, in addition to Mega Charizard just being able to plow through his team. Yes, he does have the Quagsire, but Quagsire is also exploited by certain mons on my team, and just getting a little chip damage off on Zygarde is, not on Zygarde, on Quagsire. Zygarde would be helpful too, but on Quagsire will be very, very helpful for later in the game. But yeah, let's just go ahead and hop right in on, man, I just keep doing that, right on into the team that I am bringing. First of all, we are starting off with a Thunderbolt, Dazzling Gleam, Volt Switch, and Grass Knot Tapu Koko with the Fairyum Z, because Fairyum Z essentially just gets me a kill against something on his team. I did kind of tinker with Electrium and also Grassium, but I felt that against his team, the only things that resist Thunderbolt and Volt Switch are, well, the only things that are immune to it, rather. Rotom Heat does resist, and so does Chestnut, but the only things that are immune to it are Zygarde and Quagsire. Both of those get bopped by Dazzling Gleam and Grass Knot, respectively. Glass Knot, man, I am just tripping over my words. This is going to be a high-quality live for you guys. But they get bopped by Dazzling Gleam and Grass Knot, and Quagsire, enough damage is done to it because it has to be defensive in order to deal with my Mega Charizard. Like, if he brings a Quagsire, it is going to be defensive. So I really don't need the Grassium yet. It does ensure a one-hit KO, but Zygarde, while I do have a very hard stop to it in Tangrowth, being able to Z-Dazzle against that thing is very, very solid. And also, Z-Dazzle is not only good against the Zygarde, it is good against his team in general. So it just felt like Z-Dazzle was the way to go in, well, with regards to that. As for the speed creeps that I'm going for, I decided to speed creep something speed creeping. Basically, it was just like, I'm trying to catch something speed creeping my Gengar. I really didn't want to go into huge mind games over the speed creep in this one. I was like, you know what, I'll just speed creep something speed creeping Gengar, more than likely the Aerodactyl, because the Mega Alakazam can afford to run Modest while also still outspeeding Koko. So it wasn't even worth trying to catch it there. I figured that his Aerodactyl would go fairly standard in its speed creep, so it just made the most sense. Maxed out my special attack, and then I threw the rest into HP and then 4 into defense. I did not quite maximize my HP, just because it reduces the damage that I take from Stealth Rock by 1, which may or may not come into play. Who even knows? I mean, it's just kind of one of those things, like any 1 extra HP that I can get in certain situations should be helpful overall, or at least I would hope that it would be. The next mon we have is a Choice Scarf Gengar, and I really thought long and hard about what type of Gengar I wanted to bring, just because Gengar is so good in this matchup. And while I really wanted to just kind of a breaker Gengar, I ultimately decided on a revenge killing set, because that just seemed to make the most sense in this matchup, as his Well, as the mons that are slower than Gengar are easily, or pretty easily broken and handled by Tapu Koko and Charizard, and the mons that I'm most scared of are the Aerodactyl and the Mega Alakazam, both of whom I would like to be able to outspeed with a Choice Scarf and be able to revenge kill those things. So that's ultimately why I decided on Choice Scarf Gengar. With Shadow Ball and Sludge Wave, that's really all the coverage I need for his team, but T-Bolt is nice for like the Aerodactyl, just the Aerodactyl and the Manaphy. Also the fact that I can take advantage of my own electric terrain is really, really nice for boosting the damage output by Thunderbolt. And then HP Ice, I thought about like Destiny Bond or something like that, but ultimately decided that HP Ice was just better for being able to pick off Zygarde if it had a little bit of damage on it already. The speed is enough for Alolan Ninetales, maxed out my special attack, and then just threw 8 into defense because, I mean, it really didn't make a difference in terms of the damage output for HP anyway, so I figured just having a tiny bit more defense could help against, I don't know, against maybe something that came somewhere along the lines like a Seed Bomb from Chesnaught or a Play Rough from Slurpuff, that type of thing. Next up we have a Spadef Skarmory, and this is my main way of dealing with his Mega Alakazam, because otherwise I do not have a switch in to that thing at all. And Mega Alakazam, even though it can run Modest Focus Blast, well, it has to hit both of those, and I can hopefully pivot around. Maybe the combination of Koko and Gengar will encourage him not to just always click Focus Blast, and he has to run Focus Blast as well, although I'm not sure why you wouldn't, given the team that I do have. But Iron Head, Roost, Defog, and Stealth Rock with Weak Armor. Opted for Weak Armor over Sturdy because getting hit by Aerodactyl with the speed investment that I do have will allow me to not only outspeed any Aerodactyl that is not Scarfed, it will also allow me to potentially outspeed an Alakazam that is speed creeping Tapu Koko, which could be big in late game if I'm able to outspeed the Alakazam and hit it with an Iron Head, Roost Up, anything like that. The speed is exactly for that, so that I hit 396 once I get hit with Weak Armor, Defog, and Stealth Rock. Just Stealth Rock is good against his team, Defog is for Charizard support, and then max HP, and then the rest into Spadef so I can take hits as well as possible. We have an Assault Vest Tangrowth. This is my main Zygarde answer, and the reason I opted for Assault Vest over something like Leftovers is because Z Sludge Wave is a very common thing that I've seen on Zygarde to try to take out a Tangrowth, because Tangrowth can switch into 1000 Arrows all day long. It can even switch into +1 Z Outrage, and while it doesn't necessarily like taking it, it can take it, so Z Sludge Wave is normally seen as a pretty solid way of taking out Tangrowth, while Assault Vest not only lets me take that, but also gives me kind of a pivot around Mega Alakazam, Manaphy, Jirachi. I mean, not as much as I would like, because let's be real, Tangrowth Spadef is still kind of crap. It's still just nice to have that, and I don't know why Showdown still does this, but let's go ahead and fix those really quickly. But yeah, so that is what Tangrowth is designed to do, basically take on Zygarde and just be an overall pivot in this game. HPS, obviously for Zygarde. Sludge Bomb I opted for over Brick Break just because Slurpuff is actually a little bit annoying for my team, especially because I'm forced to run a Spadef Skarm in this game. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Gengar can, with the Choice Scarf, outspeed an unburdened Adamant Slurpuff, so that's kind of the added bonus of running a Choice Scarf Gengar. But yeah, Tangrowth, I opted for Sludge Bomb over Brick Break because even though I did want to get rid of that Aurora Veil, just the ability to take out the Slurpuff or hit it very, very hard. Yeah, Aurora Veil can go up and then he can try to set up on me, but with Sludge Bomb I should be able to still hit that thing hard enough while also potentially spreading poison against his team. Knockoff is nice for just getting rid of items, also hitting Zam a little bit harder, and then Giga Drain is really just there for like Manaphy and Quagsire, just be able to hit those things hard and recover HP. The special attack is a jumping point for HP Ice damage against Zygarde. The defense is the special defense rather, is so I guaranteed live a neutral, I think it's just a zero investment, naughty natured Z Sludge Wave into Sludge Wave after rocks, and then the rest into HP and defense. Next up we have Swampert, which is going to be just kind of a mon that is here to relieve a little bit of the defensive pressure off of both Skarmory and Tangrowth, just be able to come in there and pivot out while also taking hits that I wouldn't necessarily want either of them to take. It's Again, mainly just there so that I don't have to just rely solely on Tangrowth and Skarmory as my team. I feel definitely pressures him hard enough, but Skarmory and Tangrowth are very pressured by him. So being able to relieve any of that pressure, I think I said the word pressure or some variation of it like 6 times just then, and being able to relieve any of the pressure off my defensive mons so that they can check and counter what they are supposed to will definitely put me in a great position. Then with Protect, Earthquake, Toxic, and Roar, I don't have anything to hit the Aerodactyl with, but I mean Toxic should be sufficient, and also Aerodactyl is kind of food for Tangrowth and the Skarmory, so I'm not overly worried about that thing. And then just Earthquake and Toxic cover his team nicely. Protect, obviously, I mean, it's a Swampert, of course I'm running Protect on it. Also potentially bust a Z move from things like Zygarde, Scout Out, what type of attacks like a Rotom wants to go for, maybe Scout Out an HP Ice, or not an HP Ice, an HP Grass from it. And then Roar, so Manaphy cannot set up on me. The special defense is so that I guaranteed live a modest Ninetales Freeze Dry after Stealth Rock, and then threw the rest into defense, because I wanted Swampert to be Spadef anyway, and that just seemed like a logical one to hit. And finally, we have Charizard with Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, Flare Blitz, and Roost. Just very, very, very straightforward set. I believe it's almost, I think it actually is identical to the one that I brought last week, just because, I mean, outspeed the base 95, oh, not outspeed the base 95s, but outspeed something speed creeping in Adamant Charizard, just be able to Dragon Dance up and then break through his team. All I need is Dual Stab to absolutely crush him, and then hopefully Roost can help me with things like Rotom Heat or Alolan Ninetales, like a bulky Alolan Ninetales, Manaphy, just allow me to set up on them and potentially run through his team. So yeah, that is my team, and let's just go ahead and hop right on over to the battle. Alrighty, here we are in the battle, and the first thing I'm noticing is that, sadly, there is no Zygarde. That was something that I was actually really hoping he would bring, just because I felt like I had such solid counterplay to that mon, but unfortunately he did realize that it didn't have a particularly good matchup, so that is not there, so sad time for me. There is also no Alolan Ninetales, so at least I don't have to worry about the Aurora Veil. The Sludge Bomb over Brick Break idea on Tangrowth is actually beneficial in this situation, although I'm not sure I'd be clicking either in this particular matchup. But there is also no Slurpuff, which is, I mean, it's nice as that's just one less thing that I necessarily have to keep in the back of my mind, but at the same time Slurpuff was also something that I felt like I had good counterplay to. So yeah, the mons that he did bring, he brought Manaphy, Jirachi, Alakazam, Aerodactyl. I felt that those were all givens. Rotom Heat, I wasn't positive, but I mean, considering his resists to electric were either Zygarde, which gets bopped by Dazzling Gleam, Quagsire, which gets bopped by Grass Knot, or Chesnaught, which, again, Dazzling Gleam and also is not good in this matchup. Rotom Heat made the most sense, and then the Mega Alakazam, of course, is a huge threat, and Quagsire just kind of stops my Charizard from being able to do all too much. But that being said, I am thinking that he's probably going to predict me to lead off with my Koko or one of my defensive mons, as that's usually what I do. So I'm thinking that Rotom Heat seems to have the best matchup against against Koko and my entire defensive core. So I'm actually going to end up leading with my Charizard just to Mega Evolve immediately and try to exert as much pressure early as I can. As I do get that right, he does lead with his Rotom, and here I just go immediately for the Dragon Claw. I felt like I could try to set up, but I wanted to scout out what type of Rotom this is, as I knew that T-Wave was more than likely coming my way, but that damage tells me that he's a defensive Rotom, so that's good to know. But now I'm just going to fire off another Dragon Claw as it will 2-hit KO the Rotom. If he goes into Quagsire, I can scout out that set, and that damage actually tells me that while Quagsire is mainly defensive, it's probably got a good amount of mixed defenses as well. So I'm going to go straight into my Swampert as I'm thinking, okay, Quagsire, I could potentially 2-hit KO this thing with 2 more Dragon Claws, but I'm just going to go into my Swampert and fire off a Toxic. Nothing on his team really wants to take it, as Rotom ends up coming in on my Pert, and this screams to me that this thing has HP Grass. So instead of going for the Protect immediately, as he could go for like a Pain Split or something like that, I'm going to go straight into my Charizard as it covered both of a, I don't know, kind of a double into something to try to exploit my Swampert, but also the HP Grass play, as he does end up revealing that. And also I want to save Protect on Swampert for later, because even though it's me, and it's very obvious that I run Protect on my Swamperts, it still was just a situation that I didn't feel was in my best interest to just immediately protect with as Toxic was racking up on me as well, and I want to keep Swampert at relatively high health, just try to keep it so that it can take a hit or two if needed. And Charizard was just an all-around switch into the Rotom, as it had revealed Toxic was probably going to reveal HP Grass right there, and so now I'm in a very good position. So I can just fire off another Dragon Claw, as there's no way he goes into Jirachi on my Charizard, as he brings in his Quagsire once again, and I get a crit now. This actually is a really big turn for me. So first of all, I probably could have I could have 2-hit KO'd the Quagsire without the crit, but that is very unfortunate. However, considering that I have not gotten parried yet, I will admit I've gotten lucky on the paras. I was incredibly paranoid, pun intended, but I was incredibly paranoid that that would be the turn that I got full parried against the Quagsire, because I would have outsped. Charizard still would have outsped the Quagsire just because Quagsire is so incredibly slow, and I would have been able to knock that out with a Dragon Claw. However, like I said, I was very worried that I would get full para there as he was able to recover, and then he'd be able to fire off a Scald, recover again, and basically I would just get nothing out of that turn if Charizard got full parried. So instead of taking out the Quagsire, risking the 25% para, I just pulled the switch into my Skarmory, and this was a big misplay by me. I should have taken out that Quagsire immediately, as it had already been revealed to be mixed defensive. Tapu Koko against his team absolutely goes in if I'm able to just spam Volt Switch like crazy. Like, Tapu Koko will demolish him if that is the case once I get Quagsire out of the way. Quagsire can take a Grass Knot from full if he has a decent amount of Spadef, which based on the Dragon Claw damage, it looks like he has. So that was a big misplay by me, by not trying to take out the Quagsire immediately. But again, I was overly paranoid that that would be the turn that I would get parried, and I would get absolutely nothing out of that. So I just went to Skarmory to try to get up my rocks in order to get something out of the turn, even though it was obvious that he was going to go for the recover. So like I said, Quagsire is going to be able to recover, as I'm going to go into Skarm, and I will get up my rocks as Rotom comes in, gets takes the poison, and it actually ends up eating its Iapapa Berry. So I was like, well, that's unfortunate, but again, I do have Charizard that I can switch in all the time. I can just do the rinse and repeat of Dragon Clawing repeatedly. Rotom is eventually going to get worn down, and my rocks will be here to stay. Now, thinking that he's going to go for the Volt Switch, I'm going to go into my Swampert just to take the Volt Switch. Yeah, I do take the poison, but Rotom has already consumed its recovery. It has revealed Volt Switch, Defog, Thunder Wave, and Hidden Power Grass, so it has nothing. It has no recovery apart from the Iapapa Berry, so the second that I can get that thing worn down, my rocks will be here to stay, which will be very, very nice for putting Quagsire more than likely in range of Koko's Grass Knot, in addition to wearing Aerodactyl down, Manaphy down, etc., etc. So I'm going to go into Swampert as he goes for the Volt Switch, and now I'm going to reveal the Protect, as I do want to put this Rotom in range of rocks for later in the game, so that way if I do get rocks up, then it cannot come back in. But now, considering that I don't want Swampert to go down, I'm just going to go straight into my Charizard. Yes, he can Volt Switch if he wants to, which he makes a very good play and does go for, but now, considering he's just going to go into his Aerodactyl, I still have responses to whatever he decided to bring in. I'm going to switch out my Charizard into my Skarmory, as that's just a very safe play, as he reveals the Pursuit, and the damage that he did is not like attack boosted at all. I was trying to figure out what the damage was on this Aerodactyl, and the Pursuit damage was very firmly in adamant range, like adamant non-boosted range, and so it was actually really fortunate for me that I got that particular damage roll with the Aerodactyl, because it was on the higher end, which told me that it could not possibly be Jolly Aerodactyl. It had to be adamant without a boosting item. I mean, it could be like Jolly Black Glasses, but that's not really a set, and if that is a set, well then my Gengar is able to take that on very handily. But that tells me that since it's Adamant Aero with Pursuit, this thing is going to be Scarfed. Like, this thing, if it's not Scarfed Aero, I will be very, very, very shocked. So that's going to have to factor into the plays that I make later in the game. But now, Skarmory is in. I'm just going to go straight for the rocks as he goes into his Rotom, and it was kind of one of those things, like I was tempted to just go for a Roost to try to live the Volt Switch or whatever, but I'm just going to go into my Charizard. I have no reason not to. If he defogs, then Rotom dies, and if he goes for anything else, well, it dies to rocks anyway. So he does fire off a T-Wave, trying to catch a Skarmory, so good play on his part. But now he's just going to go into his Jirachi, Psychic me, and Charizard is going to go down as this Jirachi is revealed to have leftovers. So that is very unfortunate for me that we see the Jirachi have leftovers, and then the damage reveals that it is a bulky Jirachi, so that is very difficult for me to deal with, but I am noticing that Gengar can just spam Shadow Ball and basically 2-hit KO everything on his team at worst. I mean, Manaphy is a potential roll depending on his investment. As I'm going to go into Swampert, he gets up his rocks as I Earthquake to really just ultimately nullify the Wish, as, I mean, he's pretty much at exactly the amount of health that he was before I went for the Earthquake, but it was just kind of a nice nullify the Wish type of thing as he goes to his Manaphy on another Earthquake. And at this point, I'm pretty sure Swampert's done its job. I'm just going to roar around, try to get some chip damage on some stuff, Earthquake, maybe get a little bit of chip here and there, as I roar him into his Aerodactyl, so that is beautiful for me. That's just one step closer into Gengar Shadow Ball range, and considering he's going to switch out, that basically confirms that Aerodactyl will be in Shadow Ball range later. I'm going to go for the Toxic, as I knew that he would switch his Aerodactyl out. You would not switch Aerodactyl, you would not keep Aerodactyl in on a Swampert that had not revealed its last move. And I'm going to go for the Toxic as the Manaphy comes in. I'm able to get a Toxic off, and he goes for Ice Beam and crits me. Now at the time I was just kind of like, whatever, but after the game I did calc it, and it turned out to have mattered, but I mean, it's really not that big of a deal, as I just went for Roar, and it only would have been significant if I brought in like Manaphy to get a little bit more chip damage off, maybe Alakazam. If I had brought in Alakazam or Jirachi on that Roar, as I would go down to Poison, then Gengar would be able to come in and claim a KO with Shadow Ball, which would have put me in a very, very good position. But alas, knocks me out with a crit Ice Beam. Not a huge deal, as now I am able to go into my Tapu Koko, and yeah, my avatar keeps changing. Once again, it changed again because I have a custom avatar on Draft Frontier, and the replays do not have the ability to code for that, so it just kind of switches mine randomly. But Tapu Koko is able to knock out the Manaphy with the Thunderbolt. Alakazam is going to come in, and I cannot take a modest Psychic, which I'm very, very positive that he is. So I'm going to go straight into my Skarmory. As he does go for the Psychic, it does a decent chunk, but again, Skarmory is very, very Spidef in this instance, so I could try to double out, but I'm not going to bother with that. I need to keep my Skarmory at high amounts of health so I can switch into not only the Alakazam, but the Aerodactyl as well, considering that Tangrowth isn't going to be that useful in this matchup. So now with the Jirachi in, I'm just going to go into my Tangrowth. Really has no incredible purpose in this matchup, just getting some chip damage off. I am able to knock off the Jirachi, which gets rid of its leftovers, which can help put it in range of things later on. And I'm going to go into my Tapu Koko, as I'm thinking he'll just go for a Wish, which he does, as he could have been 2-hit KO'd by knockoff from there. And I'm just going to go straight for the T-Bolt. I cannot afford to let him go into Aerodactyl. Even though the Quagsire was very, very obvious, I could not let Jirachi heal up, I could not let Aerodactyl or Alakazam heal up. So Quagsire comes in. I'm not going to risk the Grass Knot, even though I probably should have, considering he went straight for the Toxic, so good play on his end. But now with my Tangrowth in, I mean, I just want to get rid of this Quagsire's leftovers, as Quagsire without lefties means that when it switches into Stealth Rock, if it switches into Koko on if it switches in on an electric move, then even though it will be immune, it will not recover back up to full health, which puts the Grass Knot roll more in my favor. So getting rid of his lefties, maybe getting rid of like the Scarf on Aero, even just knockoff damage on Alakazam or 2-hit KOing the Jirachi, were all beneficial plays for me. So really, just knockoff was a no drawback play, and here's kind of a 50-50. I could go into Tapu Koko on the Psychic and knock the Jirachi out, where Tangrowth would still be at a very high amount of HP. However, if he does Wish up and is able to pass it into something, that'd be really, really bad for me. Even though I know he doesn't have Protect, I don't want that Wish lingering to where once I'm able to knock him out with Koko, although I guess hindsight 2020, that my play was definitely to go into Coco here, as Psychic was a play that he could make, but again, I didn't want that Quagsire to be able to heal back up to full again. Just, I didn't want the Wish lingering, so I am going to leave my Tangrowth in to take the Psychic and go for the knockoff, and I felt it was a 50-50 at the time, but hindsight 2020, this is another misplay by me. I should have just gone straight to the Coco, as I wasn't going to live a modest Psychic anyway. Should have just taken the Psychic, knocked out the Jirachi, and gone from there, because even if he tried to pass the Wish into Quagsire, well, suddenly Jirachi is really, really low, and that is something that I can exploit later in the game, and if I knocked out the Jirachi, well, the Wish just would not be passed at all. So Tangrowth is going to be very low, and this does give him the opportunity to go into his Mega Alakazam and trace the Regenerator, which is kind of funny. But I'm going to save Tangrowth for later, as if Quagsire is in, if I'm able to get it in on Quagsire, I will be able to Giga Drain that thing and either hit Alakazam for a decent amount of damage, or Aerodactyl for a solid chunk as well, as he does crit me with the Psychic, but I mean, I would have just gone for Roost anyway, as he does go for the Calm Mind, and here I'm just kind of like, ooh, this is a little bit scary. So I'm going to go for the Iron Head. Does a decent chunk, is not a 2-hit KO, unfortunately, so I am just going to have to sack off my Tangrowth right here to the +1 Alakazam. If he went for like a Recover right there, that would have been a very good play, but still, I think that the better play was to just Psychic, which he did do. But this allows me to go into my Gengar, fire off a Shadow Ball, and knock out his Mega Alakazam, so threat neutralized, as it confirms I am Scarfed, and he goes into Aerodactyl here, which, again, I mean, if I wasn't sure that it was Scarfed before based on the damage, the fact that it's adamant, I'm sure now, because I just showed that I was a Scarf Gengar, and you don't bring Scarf Aero in on and you don't bring Aerodactyl in on a Gengar when you're low if your Aerodactyl isn't Scarfed. And here is where I make a misplay that could have potentially cost me the game. Now, what I need to do, because I know the Aerodactyl is Scarfed, is I need to go straight into my Skarmory. If he pursuits and knocks me out, well, now I get to switch up the thing that I want to bring in, and I would be able to bring in Tapu Koko. Aerodactyl would be confirmed locked into Pursuit, and I would be able to go for Grass Knot, which would 2-hit KO the Aerodactyl, or 2-hit KO the Quagsire on the switch, just basically sealing up the game for me. However, if he does go for the Earthquake, and I leave Gengar in, then Gengar dies, I go into Skarmory, he has a free switch into his Quagsire, and the only way that I can win the game is if I get a good amount of 50-50s correct, and also potentially get a flinch with Skarmory. So, yeah, I will end up staying in, make a huge misplay that could cost me the game, as he does end up going for Pursuit. He was going more for a differential than playing off my Choke, but I mean, again, you can't predict your opponent to be stupid like I was in that situation and potentially throw away the game. So, I mean, he made the right play playing for a differential, but I just got fortunate that, yeah, just basically very dumb play by me. Should have gone into Skarmory 100%, as that guaranteed me the game, but alas, my dumb play does end up coming through, and we are able to win the game 2-0. And yeah, like I was saying, like I really did choke right there at the end with that play in Gengar. I made a misplay with my Tangrowth, and I also made a misplay earlier in the game by not Dragon Clawing the Charizard. So even though we did come out with a 2-0 victory, which, I mean, we take those, just ultimately very disappointed in how I played this game. I did not play particularly well, in my opinion, and it just so happened that I had a very good matchup that was able to kind of just carry me in this game and able to bring home the 2-0 victory. So very good game to Burigo. I mean, he's a very good player, and you saw what he was able to do with the team that he was uncomfortable with. He had to take over for Avon, and he did not like the team that he had, but he was still able to almost beat me, and he should have beaten me if I, well, I mean, basically, I don't know. He could have beaten me, and yeah, I just did not play as well as I wanted to. So yeah, nonetheless, we do come out with a victory, and that's ultimately what matters. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.